The Shrouds, Part 1. The return to Al-Batn. When Khalid's father died, he left behind more than just land in the forgotten desert village of Al-Batni. Left behind whispers that told of the Shrouds, shadowy figures wrapped in burial cloths that haunted the village at night. Khalid hadn't visited Al-Batn in years. He had built a modern life in the city, his faith intact, but distant from the old world superstitions. Yet as the eldest son, it was his duty to handle his father's burial and inheritance. As Khalid drove his dusty SUV through the cracked earth of the desert road, the sun sank like a molten coin into the dunes. When he finally reached the village, a strange heaviness hung in the air. Children didn't play in the streets. Windows were shuttered. Even the mosque was closed after Maghrib, unusual for a place where prayer was the only sign of life. The old caretaker, Sheikh Jalil, greeted Khalid quietly. "You came alone." "Yes, my brothers will come later. I wanted to bury him myself." Jalil nodded, but his eyes lingered on Khalid's face. "Then you must leave before Lalato comes." "What's Thursday night?" Khalid asked. Jalil lowered his voice. "The night the Shrouds walk. Every soul disturbed by improper burial returns. If it's not settled before then, they bring others." Khalid almost laughed, but something in the old man's voice chilled him. Still, he said nothing. Part 2. The burial. The next morning, Khalid performed ghusl for his father with proper care. He wrapped him in white kafan, reciting the Shahada with trembling lips. He had buried people before. He'd volunteered with a burial society during university. But this felt different. The wind moaned over the dunes like a cry. Before sunset, they'd buried his father near the old graveyard at the edge of Al. It was cracked and dry, the gravestones crooked like broken teeth. At night, Khalid stayed in his father's stone house. The wind howled, but he brushed it off. He performed Isha, locked the doors, and laid down with the Quran at his bedside. But sleep never came. Somewhere past midnight, Khalid woke to a low sound, a dragging sound. He sat up. The door was locked. No footsteps, just something dragging over stone. And then ... 3 slow, hollow knocks at the door. Khalid asked, his voice dry. No answer. He reached for his phone. Dead. He checked the time on his wristwatch. 1:13 a.m. Another knock. He opened the peephole. Nothing. He cracked the door slightly and peered out into the moonlit courtyard. That's when he saw it. A figure in white cloth headsuit, its face covered in a burial shroud, standing silently just beyond the wall, not moving, not breathing. And behind it, then more, slowly emerging from behind trees, out of the shadows, wrapped in tattered kafan, dirt-stained and still. They stood still, watching. Khalid shut the door and began reciting Ayat al-Kursi, his voice shaky but firm. He sprayed Ruqya water around the room. The figures didn't approach, but they didn't leave either. All night they remained. Part 3. The forgotten graves. At dawn, they vanished. Khalid ran to Sheikh Jalil and told him everything. "You buried your father," the sheikh said, "but not those beneath him." "What do you mean, the land where you buried him?" "It was not empty." They walked together to the cemetery. Jalil showed him a cracked stone, half buried under sand behind his father's new grave. Khalid brushed it clean. A name appeared, faded. The grave of a woman named Sa, who had died in 1968. People say she was buried without prayer, accused of sorcery. No one washed her. "They say her soul never rested," Jalil whispered. Khalid felt the weight of it, the improper burial of the forgotten. The night of Thursday was coming. He needed to fix it. Part 4. The night of the Shrouds. That day, Khalid spent hours reciting over the old grave. He cleaned the area, raised a proper stone, and prayed for all the unknown souls buried nearby. He called the local imam to perform janazah gib for them. They poured Zamzam water and saffron-infused Quran pages into the ground, in quiet dignity. But that night, late al-Khamis day still came. Khalid stayed up in prayer. He lit a lantern with olive oil, just like his grandmother used to during spiritual nights. And then, the door opened on its own. Standing in the doorway was a figure in kafan, but this time, it didn't approach. It bowed its head. Behind it, the others stood still, silent. One by one, they began to disappear into the wind, like smoke returning to the soil. Except for one. The woman Saliha, her face pale and lined with sorrow, appeared from behind the white veil. Her mouth never moved, but Khalid heard the words, "Now, I can rest." She turned, walking into the desert, slowly vanishing as the Fajr Ahan echoed through the dawn. Epilogue. Khalid stayed in Al-Batn for a week after. No more knockings, no more dragging sounds. The children returned to the streets. The mosque reopened at night. He had learned something sacred, that death does not end duty, and the forgotten dead remember who forgets them. He placed a sign outside the old graveyard. Every soul deserves a prayer, and beneath it a warning. Beware the night of the Shrouds. End.